Picture this. In just 47 seconds, a single red wristband is about to expose a conspiracy that reaches from a dying child's hospital bed straight to the highest levels of power. What you're about to hear will make you question everything you thought you knew about charity, politics, and the price of a child's life. Imagine walking into a hospital room where the fluorescent lights hum like dying bees. One flickers overhead, casting stutters of pale light across a boy's face. Davian Marsh is 9 years old, and he hasn't spoken in 36 hours. Tubes wrap around his chest like vines, beeping in steady rhythms the way life does when it's trying not to give up. Outside his room, his mother, Deborah, stands between a vending machine and a stack of unpaid invoices. Her voice isn't raised, but it's steel. "I submitted the paperwork 3 times, she tells a woman behind the billing counter. "The doctor said your foundation signed off themselves." The woman doesn't make eye contact. She taps at her keyboard like she's trying to erase Deborah's grief with a few strokes. "Ma'am, I understand, but the request for financial assistance was reviewed and denied. The Trump Children's Fund determined this case was not eligible." Not eligible. The words hang in the air like a death sentence. "They prioritize terminal patients with broader social visibility," the woman continues, her voice flat and robotic. "Cases that help raise awareness." There's a silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that wraps around your throat and waits. Deborah steps back like she's just been shoved. Her hands shake as she pulls out her phone, flipping to a photo of Davian smiling with a stuffed dinosaur, his cheeks chubby, his eyes radiant. "He's not visible enough," she whispers. "Can you believe this? A 9-year-old boy fighting for his life isn't visible enough for a charity that claims to save children." But wait until you hear what happens next. Back in room 712, Davian's chest rises and falls, barely. At 10:41 p.m., the nurse returns with a clipboard and a Ziploc bag. Inside are his medication records, a single Lego figurine, and something that will change everything, a red wristband stamped with gold foil lettering. "Thank you for believing in me. Trump Children's Fund." Deborah doesn't scream. She just stares. Then she pulls the wristband from the bag like it might still be warm, like it might still carry his pulse. She slips it onto her own wrist and sits beside his bed, folding his fingers into hers. By 2:06 a.m., Davian is gone. The machines don't beep. They just sigh. No doctor comes to explain. No one from the Trump Foundation calls. But at 8:13 the next morning, Deborah receives an automated email reminding her to fill out a donor satisfaction survey. Little did anyone know that 11 days later, that same red wristband would reappear under different fluorescent lights. Inside Congress, wrapped around the wrist of a woman who refused to let silence win. Jasmine Crockett sits at her desk long past midnight, catching up on emails no staffer wants to touch. Most are predictable complaints, but one message hits different. No subject, no introduction, just one chilling line. You should see where the money really went. There are 2 attachments. The first is a PDF, cold, official, devastating. A $2.7 million wire transfer from the Eric Trump Foundation to a political action committee known among watchdog groups as one of Donald Trump's covert fundraising machines. Jasmine glances at the date, November 14th. She blinks hard. That's the exact day Davian's mother was told there was no money to save her son. Her pulse picks up as she opens the second file. It's a photograph, grainy but unmistakable, a funeral program with Davian's name and photo. And resting right on top of it is the red wristband. Same wording, same logo. "Thank you for believing in me. Trump Children's Fund." Only now it's not on the wrist of a hopeful child. It's lying limp beside a folded obituary. Jasmine freezes. She's been in tough hearings before, gone head-to-head with firebrands and fools. But this isn't about politics. This is a dead child. This is blood money stamped with a logo and sold as compassion. She doesn't hesitate. She picks up her phone and calls Arthur Glenn, a former financial oversight auditor who walked away from a 30-year career after seeing too much corruption. "I was wondering how long it would take before someone saw that transfer," he says before she even speaks. Arthur explains how the Trump Foundation has laundered millions through kid-focused campaigns because no one questions a dying child. They use backdoor accounts. shell charities that open and close within 90 days, just long enough to accept donations, spend nothing, then vanish. The most recent wire to Victory, 24, wasn't even the biggest transfer. It was just the sloppiest. And it coincided directly and fatally with Davian Marsh's rejection. Here's where it gets crazy. By morning, Jasmine has reached out to Representative Gail Simmons, chair of the Oversight Committee. She lays out everything. The wire transfer, the timing, the cover-up. Gail doesn't interrupt. She just listens, then says one word. Schedule. That night, Jasmine sits in her apartment with a printout of Davian's obituary and a replica red wristband she ordered that afternoon. Same inscription, same width, but it feels heavier than rubber. It feels like grief molded into plastic. Jasmine meets a stare at last, one brow lifting almost imperceptibly. Coincidences do happen, she agrees, sliding the document into the center of the table. But they don't usually come with matching surnames and sealed removal orders. The silence that follows isn't comfortable. It's sharp, the kind that makes people's shoulders tighten without realizing it. Trump's lawyer reaches for the microphone, but doesn't speak. Instead, Trump raises one hand slightly, a signal to hold back. His eyes never leave Jasmine's, as if he's trying to read whether she is more, whether this is in her play, or just the opening move. She glances down at that gray folder, still closed, then back up at the room. This is not about one name, she says softly. It's about why certain names disappear from the list, while thousands of others don't. And that's when you realize this isn't just about policy anymore. This is personal. But who is Caroline Trump, and why was her name on that list? The next witness changes everything. Karen Ellis walks toward the stand with the stiff posture of someone who's worn a badge for most of her life, but there's a weight in her step, like she's been carrying this truth too long. Her icy lapel pin is gone, replaced by a simple silver brooch that catches the overhead light. She begins describing the priority removal protocols of 2019, explaining how once a name hits that list, it almost never comes off unless there's a clerical error or, as she puts it, a directive from somewhere higher than policy. Then she drops the bombshell. She speaks of a case that puzzled her for years, a young woman flagged for immediate deportation. We had her in custody, Karen says, her voice tightening. Papers signed, transport scheduled. Then overnight, the order was gone. The committee chair leans forward. Gone. Karen nods. Not delayed. Not appealed. Gone. Like it never existed. She describes tracing the decision as far as she could, to a late-night call to the IC director's office. It came from the highest office, she says, her tone tightening on the last two words. The implication hangs in the air like a spark waiting for oxygen. But here's where it gets absolutely incredible. Jasmine reaches into her stack and draws out a single sheet, crisp white and scarred with thick black bars. These, she says, are official call logs from the week in question. She holds the page so the cameras can zoom in. Even through the broadcast grain, millions can make out the unredacted fragments. Dates, times, and the words White House switchboard. For calls, she explains. All placed within 72 hours. All to IC headquarters. The first at 10:47 p.m., lasting 3 minutes. The second the very next night. The third and fourth in quick succession 2 days later, both before midnight. These aren't business hour calls. Jasmine says, after-hours contact of this kind requires direct clearance. It's not routine. It's not casual. Trump's attorney objects, his voice clipped with desperation. But the committee chair overrules him with a single gavel strike that cracks through the room like a starting gun. What's coming next will blow your mind. Jasmine produces another document, and this time Trump's reaction is immediate. He leans toward the microphone, that smirk from a moment ago now sharper, harder. You're chasing shadows, Congresswoman, he says. You take a few phone calls and spin them into some grand conspiracy because you've got nothing real. But Jasmine doesn't flinch. Phone calls don't vanish on their own, she replies evenly. And deportation orders don't disappear unless someone with power makes them disappear. Then Trump makes a mistake that changes everything. He leans forward, both hands planted on the desk, voice rising. I protect my family. The words hit the chamber like a physical force. There's a collective intake of breath. In the press gallery, pens begin to scratch furiously. The phrase, "I protect my family," is already climbing trending lists on social media. Jasmine lets the pause linger just long enough. "Your family?" she repeats, her tone deceptively calm. Because the last time I checked, U.S. immigration policy doesn't make exceptions for family, unless, of course, it's the kind of family you can't talk about. The damage is done. The words are out there, echoing beyond the marble walls. Outside, the entire country is turning that single sentence over in their minds. "I protect my family,"